So good afternoon, everybody. A big thank you for coming. The weather is nice and the topic is not easy to handle. And so I'm going to start to talk just quickly about me. Since I'm a young kid, I have been fascinated by economics and art and how society revolves around economics and how you have innovation development through economics. And what I wanted to, before I jump into the algorithm matter or the blockchain, I'm going to explain to you how, and I want to make like a visual connection. Instead of having books, I prefer to do visual connections, and I have always been like a kind of artist. Each time I tried not to be an artist, I was so miserable that I gave up and I became a full-time artist. And I really want to make connection, so through this visual support to explain how society works and to open doors, like to details people won't necessarily pay attention to, like regulatory system, economic system, also social-political system, and how everything is tied together and it's more complex. It's really about the complexity of the society. And so for this show, the practice of blockchain, what I've done, I'm a pretty organized person and I like to organize everything, and I think a lot of artists are like this in a certain way, even if it's not obvious at the first time, but it's like we have our own territory and we like to redesign the territory in our own way, and it's what I've done in this show. So I organized the show in 3 parts. The first part are those 2 paintings, and for me it represents the foundation, the economic foundation. And how I started is I studied the Federal Reserve. I did a series about the Federal Reserve, how the Federal Reserve was built in 1913. And so I knew this centralized system, which is, monetarily speaking, it's good because it gave a kind of stability. And in 2016, December 2016, the Federal Reserve wrote a paper about the blockchain technology, which is a decentralized system. So if you haven't heard about the blockchain, most people think about the cryptocurrencies, but for me, I'm more interested about the system, the fact that it was a decentralized system. And before it's still on, you have the Federal Reserve. So you have this Federal Reserve centralized system, which started to study the decentralized system of the blockchain technology for clearance and payment. So when you, instead of having like multiple intermediaries, you have this kind of system which is a ledger, and each transaction validates the other transaction, and it's quite transparent, and so it's decentralized. But you should Google it and learn more from it, because I'm not here really to explain everything in detail. I'm more here to explain like at a more like social, political and philosophical level how we switch to one system to another one. So to go back to my foundation, the economic system, I'm going to start to explain to you how I proceed. So I work with layers. So the first layer is a background which represents the architecture of my thinking. And for this painting, for example, which is called The Guardians, I took my inspiration about the Abacus Bank. The Abacus Bank, you can go on front line. It's a small bank for immigrants, and it has been persecuted after the financial crisis wrongfully. And also it's to point the fact when you have a system in motion, it's really hard to stop it. But the background so represents the vault of the bank. And what I've done in each painting, like I said, I use layers. So the background is the vault, and then I add collages of research of data, of research, and for this particular painting, what I've done is I went online on the St. Louis Federal Reserve to find the default mortgage and loan default rates for the last 10 years. So, because the bank, Abacus Bank, a small Chinese bank, which has been prosecuted after the financial crisis, and the last 10 years, I have the data from the default mortgage loan, which was a part of the problem with the financial crisis. So it's a questioning where we are at 10 years after. And this is the link to the blockchain technology, because what I've done also, so visually speaking, I draw like networks, decentralized networks, distributed networks, and centralized networks. And for me, maybe the blockchain, as it's a system you can, which is for me transparent, because you can check the transaction online directly without any intermediaries. You just need to have the transaction key, and you can check on it. And so the collages are linked to the future. It's data from the future. But also I put some collages, and maybe you can do like you can show really the painting, because I don't know if people can see it, from the past, which represent the New York Court of Justice in 1920s. So it's also linked to the fact that we always have to relate to the past. So you have the future, you have the past, and at the end, I added a kind of shape, which is waves, and it's just to symbolize the fact that society is shaped and curved slightly but surely. It's like you are on the top of a hill, and you can't see like on a cliff, more than a hill, on a cliff, and the shore like is slightly curved, so it's a kind of symbolic. And for this particular painting, what I've done also is I put the two HSBC lions. So because the Abacus Bank is a small bank for immigrants, so it's a kind of related matter, and it's the political stage. So those two paintings, and I have another one, it's Adaptive Chaos, and it's part of the series Order from Chaos. And it represents one of the 12 branches of the Federal Reserve. So the background, like also I work with layers. Background, it's a motherboard from a computer, so it's linked to the new network systems. Then I add layers of drawings, distributed, centralized, decentralized system. Then I put collages from the past and from the future. And for me, the future, which is currently now, in fact, it's coding from one of the cryptocurrency, the Ripple, because for me it's a kind of testimony about the expansion of the blockchain and for contracts, which is quite important. I put also collages from the past, and on the top you have the building of the Federal Reserve from Boston. So centralized system, decentralized system, antagonism, where we are heading to. And also I put, like it's a geopolitical part, some collages of borders, and it was the borders during the immigrant crisis in Europe, and it's collages related to the opening and closing borders for a year. So it's also like a link to the future of how borders will be managed. So it's another questioning. So those are the two economical pillars. And then I switch to the socio-political matter with the dystopian tense. And what I've done is my inspiration for this painting was during so you had the immigrant crisis in the United States from Mexico with the caravan. So this did some settlements for refugees. And I did a research, and I found a paper from Stanford University about how algorithms, data-driven, are managing refugees, in fact. So, and it has been applied in Switzerland and in the US. So if you are a refugee, the algorithm will will be implemented by your profile, and they will redirect tell people to redirect you in certain states or certain countries for the economic matter, like it's the place you will be integrated, the best way you will be integrated. So it asks then the question of managing your own decision, like if we are more and more like data-driven algorithm, like through algorithm, do we have our own decision making in hands? And also like for the immigrants and at Joe, I forgot the name, but anyway, regarding the human populations, how you settle humans, how you redirect humans. So it's linked a lot, it can ask a lot of questions about also in a city, how you manage people through the fact that most of us follow algorithms with certain data, like, oh, you should go to this kind of neighborhood, you should go to this kind of neighborhood because of that, regarding your own profile. So it's a questioning about your own capability of having your own decision. And at the end, again, I put like a layer of shapes, and it's waves, and also it's how things change slightly but surely. And the last stage, not really the last because I have another one, it's the philosophical stage. And what I've done is I took a photo of a house in the middle of nowhere with a view on the mountains, and I blocked the windows with, do you know Play-Doh and the allegory of the cave? So I took the allegory of the cave and I translated it into binary code. So it's a kind of relic, but it also asks the question about the algorithmic reality. So are we willing to see a certain reality? Because now, like I said before, we are more and more managed by algorithm. I call the show like Praxis of Blockchain because I think, and it's the case also for this painting about the immigrants, I think like if you have a new decentralized system, and I wanted to point the fact that it's like if you don't have a stability, an economic stability can help like also to manage currency exchange. Like it's really a decentralized system. So I think I'm really into decentralization, even if people by nature have the tendency to go even on the political side to the centralized system of the strong leader, and we have to fight these kind of things. Like we need to have more transparency, and I don't talk about the cryptocurrencies like people are scared because it's shady, but it's just the infancy of cryptos and recordings. So I think more decentralized system give more transparency, to give more like, and people they will have without the burden of intermediaries and the cost of intermediaries, will have, socially speaking, more things in their hands. But to go back to my philosophical stage, so like I said, I took Plato, the allegory of the cave. It's also linked to the fact that for Plato you need to remember, not to forget, and it's really important, especially in geopolitics, that we have the tendency to forget. And I did a small installation on the back with two metal sticks, and it's how you enforce algorithm, and it's linked more to niche and to the matter of forgetfulness. So it's really like you have remembrance, forgetfulness, and it's a kind of discussion between the two of them. So it asks the question, should we forget to move forward? Should we remember where we are heading to? And the last painting I've done, it's the newest one. It's about the attention economy. And I really, really, really want to point, even if it doesn't make any sense for you, but the economy attention is like how you monetize attention online. Like if you interact online with, you click on certain websites, so it's it's the attention of people online. And you can monetize this attention. So it's something which is not super well known, but the fact is, it's not only about this matter. It's in the future. For me, like it's like the iPhone 10 years ago. We didn't know it would exist. We didn't know we would not be able to live without an iPhone for less than 10 minutes. But you will have new like underlyings if you in the exchange, instead of having a monetary system based on money like nowadays, you will have exchange of different matters, completely dematerialized matters. Like it's hard to explain. I see it. I tell people, try to see in 3 dimensions, not in 2 dimensions. Try to implement your thinking like an algorithm, like you implement to yourself certain data, certain informations, and try to think like an algorithm, I would say. It's hard, but I don't know, for me it's really easy. Things like that, and add the layers like I did in the paintings, different layers, and you have different notions, and you can put all those notions together to have a better understanding of the society and how it works and where you stand as a human being, because physically we are here, but we are more and more dematerialized. And we start to be a kind of exchange money, but not physically speaking, but dematerializedly speaking. And for the last painting, what I've done, which is for me, it's like I'm a big geek, but it's the Federal Reserve, which became a kind of city, a new city, in fact, for the future. But it's still the centralized system of the Federal Reserve, because I think as a human, we need to converge to a central. We have the tendency to converge to a central power, like it's small communities, we have the tendency to go to our community and not to go to other communities. But we need to go back to the algorithmic thinking and know a little bit of everything and implement your thinking with different matters to, like I said, to be able to swim into different waters, if I do a symbolic. And the last thing I've done is a video. So it's just a reasoning ad absurdum. It's like you want to escape, you think you escape, but you are managed by algorithm. It's like if you know Beckett, it's linked to Beckett, the reasoning of absurdum of Beckett. And I did like some drawings as well from the video. And it's part of a big installation. In fact, it's the Tower of Hanoi, and it's like a piece of the algorithm. It's the Tower of Hanoi, you can Google it. It's just a mathematical rhetoric to implement, like to manage the algorithms. Not to manage them, but it's like a game, and you can implement it into the algorithm.
Well,
things like that.
I think on that note, let's thank Emilie for coming. And